Spoštovano občinstvo, ta pogovor bo, kot ste zagotovo razumeli, potekal v angleškem jeziku in preden s Krisom začneva morda nekaj besed za uvod, nekaj dejstev. Kris Carter je v Slovenijo pripotoval kot gost založbe Učila, ki njegove knjige izdaja že več kot 10 let. Napisal je 13 trilerjev z Robertom Hunterjem in vsi so prevedeni v slovenski jezik. Zdaj, prva knjiga je v originalu išla leta 2009, že leta 2010, torej samo leto kasneje, je pri založbi Učila izšel slovenski prevod. No, zadnja Krisova knjiga, o kateri bomo danes malce več govorili, Doktor smrti, pa je šla hkrati z originalom v začetku letošnjega junija. Kris nam bo, kot rečeno, v prihodnjih minutah povedal kaj več o svoji zadnji uspešnici, ki je ta hip razumljivo najbolj aktualna, pa tudi o sebi, zato uživajte. Boste pa seveda ob koncu prišli na vrsto tudi vi, zelo radi bi vas slišali, spoštovano občinstvo, imeli boste priložnost, da Krisa tudi sami kaj vprašate in še enkrat srčna hvala, ker ste se odzvali v takem številu. What an audience. Yeah?
Yeah. I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris, as this is your first visit of our country, I will start with some, let's say, personal questions about your life and your career. And then we will move to your latest novel, which, in my opinion, is fantastic.
Thank you.
As far as biographies go, you said, and I quote, "Biographies can be an absolute drag, so I won't bore anyone with a long life story. But the truth, Chris, is your life story, your professional path is fascinating, as you went from being a part of a male exotic dance group to being a criminal psychologist to being a professional musician. Then you gave all that up and became a full-time writer. So your life story actually reads as a novel."
I don't think so.
Yeah, it does.
I was young. It's like, I was young. So, you know, in university, you guys all been to university, you get any job in between. So, yes, I did like a Magic Mike, you know, the thing.
Yeah, we know the movie.
No,
yeah.
but the funny thing, I know, yeah, the girls are going, yeah, we know. I got extremely funny stories from that. So, pretty much it was a dance group, like you see, so the 6 of us on stage, and you do the routines and everything. But when you start, we do this in America a lot. They do like, as a joke. So you have the 6 people on stage, but every once in a while you have private parties, right? Birthdays, or you have hen nights, you know, and you get a stripper to go and do the dance. So there's always the uniforms that are the most common. So you have police officer, number 1. Firefighter, number 2, then construction worker, number 3.
Whoa, okay.
So I went to this private engagement. They told me, they hired me to go to a private hen night. And I was dressed as a cop, as a police officer. And I got there, and the routine is you knock on the door, they open the door, and then you go, "Did you call the cops?" And then you start doing your dance.
Somebody call the cops.
Right? So I go to the address as they sent me, I knock on the door, and this girl opens the door, and she's absolutely beautiful, right? Like dressed in black, like very goth. Absolutely beautiful. So I try to give her like my sexy look, which I don't have one, right? But I try to look at her and I go, "Did you call the cops?" And then she looks at me, she goes, "No." And I go, "Yes, you did." And everything is on Velcro, right? So you rip it off. And then I start doing, you hit the music and you start doing your little dance. And I start and I go past her and I do like 2 steps into the house and I look, and right at the end of the hall, there's a coffin. So for fun, they send me to a funeral.
Whoa.
For fun. So there I am in a funeral, in my Speedos, right? Everyone looking at me, a coffin, and I'm going, and to make things even worse, I was dancing to NSYNC, Bye Bye Bye.
Whoa, no way.
So this is how my career as a professional exotic dancer goes. It's not very good.
Can you show us some moves? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay, so you had the most thrilling periods of your life. Various jobs. as I mentioned. What have you learned from those experiences that you maybe today use in your books?
Well, this is the one I use the most in the book was when I was a criminal psychologist. So,
Yeah.
so I went to university in the States. I was very young, and I graduated in criminal behavior. Back then, it was a brand new profession. So
What drove you to it? What was the appeal?
complicated story. So I wanted to be a doctor. My father was a doctor, and I wanted to. When you're a kid, you wanted to follow in your parents' footsteps, and I wanted to be a doctor. So when I graduated from high school, and America works differently. You do one test called the SAT, and that test is valid for every university in America. So you can choose which one you want to go. So I was about to do the SATs, and my father asked me, what do you want to graduate university? And I said, I want to be a doctor. My dad was like, really? Come with me. So my dad took me to the hospital where he worked and took me everywhere, from the psychiatric ward to the intensive care unit, everywhere, for 2 hours, showed me everything in the hospital. And then the end he goes, you still want to be a doctor? And I was like, no. So then I went to university, and I didn't know what to do, right? Because my idea of being a doctor was dead. But in America, they do a very intelligent thing. In America, they know that students might not really know what they want to study when they go to university. So they do a one-year general. You can choose to do a general, which that means is like, so every semester you have 7 subjects in university, right? So on your first semester, if you don't know what you want to study, you can get 1 subject in psychology, 1 in law, 1 in economics, 1 in administration. So that's a semester, which is a general course. It tells you what psychology would be like, what economics would be like. So at the end of 1 semester, if you still don't know what you're going to do, but you say, I didn't like administration, I didn't like economics, but I really like law, and I really like psychology. So on the second semester, you can get 3 subjects in psychology, 3 subjects in. So by the end of 1 year, you know what you want to study, right? So when I got to America, because I didn't know what to study, I did a general, and there was a brand new course. This was the first year of the course, called Criminal Behavior Psychology. And the name already was very interesting. So I took a general, and I only took 1 semester. I didn't have to do the whole year, because it was very, very interesting. You were studying the minds of serial killers, the minds of criminals. And this was right at the beginning of the profession. So you understand, there's a series on Netflix called Mind Hunters. I don't know if anybody's seen it. Okay, so that series shows the beginning of 2 very big units of the FBI. The NCAVC, which stands for National Center of Analysis of Violent Crimes, and the BAU, which is the Behavior Analysis Unit. So the series Mindhunter showed the 2 psychologists that decided, because in the 1970s, that's called the golden era of serial killers. That's when Ted Bundy was happening, BTK was happening, the Green River Killer was happening. Everybody was there, you know, it was during the 70s. So in the 80s, they were like, maybe there is something that links serial killers together. And these 2 psychologists decided to try to study the minds of the serial killers that they had apprehended, to see if there was something that could connect them together. Something from their childhood, something from their back lives. And these were the 2 psychologists that started doing this. So you understand, so the NCAVC was sort of thought of in 1984 and signed to start acting in 1985 by Ronald Reagan, who was the president of the United States at the time. I graduated in 1985, so I was there right at the beginning. Yes, I'm old. This is how old I am. This is how I end the conversation of how old you are. It's like, I actually saw the Jackson 5 playing with Michael Jackson singing. So I am old. So anyway, so when I started as a criminal psychologist, people didn't know really what the profession was. It was a brand new profession. So we as psychologists were treated as detectives. We were taken to the crime scenes in situ, which means with the victims there. So I saw everything you can imagine, because crime in America is a different level than anything else. So I saw from, you know, people cut in half this way, cut in half that way, decapitated, dismembered, burned alive, beat to a pulp. So obviously that really helps me on the writing, is my experience with that. My experience as a dancer.
You have interviewed several criminals and serial killers. How did you talk to them without prejudice? What maybe have you learned from them?
Yeah, well, again, this is the thing that we were doing. We were trying to understand if there's anything that could connect serial killers together, right? And that's when...
Is there? Is there?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that got figured out. So, for example, this can get long. So that's when the FBI figured out that there are 4 different types of serial killers. I can go through them if you guys want, but it's going to take long. So the 4...
Shortly.
They're divided into 4 different kinds of serial killers. So the first one is called the visionaries. Those are the guys who hear voices, right? And they see things. Like they will look at a crossword puzzle and see a message in the crossword puzzle. And so they believe that they are killing, not because they want to kill, but because they hear a voice to tell them to kill, right? And there's a saying in criminal psychology that if you talk to God, you're religious. If God talks to you, you're psychotic. Right? Because you're listening voices. So that's a big saying. So that's the first type, visionaries. The second type is the power-oriented killers. Those are the ones who kill for the God power. Those are the ones who are very sadistic. They torture a lot because they get their kicks from the pain of their victims, right? Those are also the guys who tend to take trophies from the crime scene. They will take something that belongs to the kid. That's the other thing that we discovered as well during the interviews, is that the trophies have to be from the crime scene. You can't kill a person here and then go back to the person's house and take something from the house that belonged to the person. There is no link. They need,
so it's directly connected.
They need the link to the murder. So it's got to be either an object that the person had when the person got killed, or a part of the body, right? Fingers, ears. It gets crazy. Okay. So that's the power-oriented. They are the very ones who do a lot of torture. The third kind is the hedonistic kind. Those are the sexual killers. And in the apprehension from the FBI, those are by far the biggest number. It's the ones who get a sexual gratification from the murder. So they will either have sex with the victim before, during, or after the murder, and sometimes 6 months to a year after the murder has happened. I interviewed somebody who killed a woman and kept her in the fridge for a year. And he would defrost this woman every month and have sex with her. I swear to God. I interview a guy and I asked him.
I have to jump in. How did you talk to him?
How scared. Well, there's a barrier in front and everything, but obviously you're taking the role, so you're asking just questions, you're just trying to understand, you got to be very calm.
But can you understand that? Really?
Well, not really, but I did ask him. I said, look, I understand that you have your kicks, your fetish, or whatever it is, but I was like, but doesn't it bother you that for you to have your sexual pleasure, you have to defrost a person for like 3 days before? And I swear to God, right, this guy, as calm as anything, just looked at me, did a little wink, and he said, there's nothing more refreshing on a hot summer night. These are the kind, it's so funny. These are the kind of guys that they're there. So that's the third type. And the fourth type is the mission-orientated killers. These are the killers who think that they are making the world a better place by killing hookers, whatever it is. So those are the 4 types. So these are all things that you learn on the interviews. That's when they created this thing as well called the McDonald triad, which is 3 things that they find that most serial killers from back then, right? At least 2 of these 3 things happen in their lives. So one is cruelty to animals. So from a very young age, they start hurting animals. The second one is wetting the bed, so they pee themselves when they're in bed. And the third one is arson, or setting fire to things. So what we discover is that don't take that literally. So the first one, cruelty to animals. It means that if you are able to be cruel to a little kitten who has no defense, right? Imagine what you can do to a human being, right? So it shows that you have complete disregard for life, right? Because if you can hurt a little animal, then you can hurt anything, right? The second one, which is wetting the bed. It doesn't really mean wetting the bed. It means you don't have control of something that you should have control at a certain age, right? Rage, for example. We've all been there. We've all done something that you just get so angry and you punch the wall. Or at work and you go, oh, I could kill that bitch. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of people, but you don't kill, but you don't do it. These people they lack that control. They don't have that control. It's the same thing. If anybody has ever met somebody who is a narcoleptic, they fall asleep all the time. This is like all of us should be narcoleptics, but we have this little thing in our brains that when we get too tired, the brain doesn't allow us to sleep. Right? So you carry on until the evening so you can sleep. The people who have narcolepsy, they do not have this little thing in their brain that controls the sleep. So when they get tired, they just fall asleep. It's the same thing we discovered, the same thing with serial killers. They don't have the thing that controls their rage. So when the rage kicks in, they attack. And the third one, arson, it doesn't mean setting fire to things. It means disregard to other people's property. They don't give a damn. If it doesn't belong to them, they will destroy it, right? So those interviews led to a lot of knowledge about things like this, right? So we created the triad, we created the 4 different kinds of serial killers. So it has helped a lot, yeah.
The story about defrosting brings me to mental illness. And you have in your many previous interviews mentioned how hard is it to heal mental illness, that it is quite difficult. Do you think that serial killers will always be the same without empathy, devoid of love?
Well, it depends on the serial killer. You know, there's not every serial killer is a complete, have no love or doesn't feel anything, right? It's all different. Again, according to the FBI, they changed the definition now, but the definition, let me give you very quickly the difference between a serial killer and a mass murderer or a spree killer as well. So a serial killer, according to the FBI, used to be a killer who kills 3 or more people in 3 or more separate events with a break in the middle. That break can be a day, a week, a month, a year, it doesn't matter. But he kills, then he takes a break, goes back home, lives with his family, whatever, and then after some time, the urge comes again. A lot of serial killers, the reason why they take the break is because they know it's wrong, right? So they go into remorse. They sit down, they go into remorse, but they can't control the urge. So they feel sad, they know that what they did is wrong, they go home, they cry, they get drunk, they do whatever. A week, a month later, the urge comes back, they can't control it, they do it again. And then they repeat the cycle. And I forgot what I was talking about because I talked too much.
About serial killer, mass murderer.
Oh yeah, so serial killer, 3 or more people, but the FBI now changed the definition to 2 or more people, not 3, 2. So by definition, right, at least in America, obviously over here it's completely different, but at least in America, every gang member in America is a serial killer. They kill more than 2 people. You know, it's almost. So that's a serial killer. A mass murder kills 3 or more people in one single event, no break. So what you see on television, a kid goes into a school in America and machine guns 24 students. He's a mass murderer, not a serial killer. And a spree killer kills 3 or more people in 3 or more separate events. But the break in between is just so he can go from one location to the other and kill more people, right? That happened in Norway, I think. The guy who he blew a bomb in the center of Oslo, I think. Is Oslo?
Yes.
Yeah. And then he got a boat and he went to an island where all the students were there and he shot. So that's a spree killer. You kill, go somewhere else, kill again, goes. So, what was it called?
Still about the definition.
So yeah, I mean, so a serial killer, not all of them, you know, have apathy or like hate people. It's just that they follow an urge. But that's the thing, the urge cannot be controlled. It doesn't matter how many sessions you have with a psychologist or a therapist, it can't be controlled, right? That's why I say to people, I remember when, at least I know here, but in England, in London, there was this girl that she left work, I think it was on Christmas Day or something, and she got raped and murdered in the park. And then you started one of those hashtag campaigns on Instagram, like Me Too kind of thing. And then there was a whole bunch of things like, you got to teach your son to respect to him. And it's like, yes, all that works. And people say women should not have to take self-defense classes to defend themselves, right? It's correct, you shouldn't have. But what you got to remember is that these people, unfortunately, they exist. And there's nothing you can do about this. It's not because their parents did not teach them well. They exist. Serial killers exist. Rapists exist. Pedophiles exist. They exist. They are out there, and you're lucky enough not to ever bump into one of them. But there's nothing you can do. You know, these people, it's a disease. They got born, some of them, with this urge to kill people or to hurt people.
In the article, Chris, How to Spot a Serial Killer, you say that it's almost impossible to spot them. So are they normally found only after committing a crime?
Yeah. That's the problem with serial killers. So serial killers, they don't look different. You know, most of them lead a very normal life. They have a family, they have kids, they are good parents, they are active in their community, they have their community, they have a job. You know, they don't look bad. They don't look like they are killers. They don't look like they are crazy. They don't anything. And that's the difference. So you can't really spot them. So unfortunately, sorry, again, it's only after they already killed 3 people that you realize that they are a serial killer. So then the damage is already done. So it is impossible. So many times when they catch a serial killer, they interview the neighbor, and the neighbor always go, never imagined that he would be a serial killer, because they don't act differently. They are not crazy. They don't go around killing kittens in the garden so you can see. It's just the way they are. So it is very hard to spot them.
I'm pretty sure the fictional criminals in your Robert Hunter series are all, let's say, fragments of all the criminals you have interviewed. Can you tell us how Robert Hunter came alive? Who is he actually based on?
Well, at first, nobody. Okay, here comes a weird story.
No.
So Hunter, right? I'm gonna try to go through this very fast. I never wanted to be a writer, but I had a dream. 2007, I had a dream, which was, to me, was strange because the dream made sense. My dreams never make sense, you know, it's just crazy. But this was a story, a beginning, middle, and end. So when I woke up, I told my girlfriend at the time, I was like, I just had this really weird dream. And she was like, what's the dream? So I told her, and she was like, that's a good story. You should write it. And I was like, okay. So that's serious. That's what I did. No experience, nothing. So I decided the next day. Seriously.
Huh? Make it more thrilling.
No, she said. So I was like, okay. So I sat down. The next day, I started writing the story. But here's the kicker, right? It wasn't a crime story. It was a love story. So I started writing this love story, and I stop and I go, okay, this is stupid. I was like, I never wanted to be a writer, but if I'm going to write a book, because of my experience as a criminal psychologist, I can probably come up with a crime story much, much better than I can come up with a love story. So I decided to write one chapter of a crime story. I didn't have the story in my head, just one chapter that I thought, what would be a good opening chapter for a crime book, right? What would be a chapter that if I read it, go, oh, this is interesting, I want to read some more. So I just came up with a chapter. Right? Gave it to my girlfriend at the time. She read both, the first chapter of the love story, the first chapter of the crime story. She goes, the crime one is better. I was like, yeah, of course it is. So then I wrote chapter 2 and 3. No story in my head. Again, just carry on with the chapters. Gave it to her and she goes, I really like it, you should continue. I gave it to a friend. Anyway, I ended up continuing with the story. It turned out to be the crucifix killer. So when I created Hunter, I just needed a detective. I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I just wanted to create a detective, right? So obviously there's a little bit of me in him. He likes whiskey, I like whiskey. He has insomnia, I have insomnia very badly. He likes rock music, I like rock music. So there are a few things that, so at the beginning, he was just a little bit like me. But now that the series has gone for 13 books, the longer it goes, the more Hunter and I are. The only thing I know that when I was writing Hunter for the first time, I didn't want Hunter to be the normal detective that you see in films, always angry, you know, having fights with everyone. So he's very calm. And obviously I wanted to use criminal psychology because that's what my knowledge came from. But I didn't want to have a detective and a separate psychologist, which happens in a lot of stories. I'm lazy. I was like, I want everything in one. So then I made Hunter an ex-criminal psychologist who became a detective. So that's how it was created. It was created out of the blues. It wasn't based on anybody at the beginning, but now it's very similar to me.
The name is catchy.
Well, Hunter?
Yeah.
It wasn't my name.
Robertu Hunterju.
The original name was Robert something else. I don't remember. Yeah. Everything gets changed. Everything.
So who chose Hunter?
People don't understand. Everything in writing gets changed. The covers get changed. So I have 13 books, right? 3 of the titles are mine. 10 of the titles, not mine.
Which 3?
An Evil Mind, I Am Death, and Genesis.
Okay.
Everything else, they didn't like it. They go, don't like this title. And I was like, fine, come up with a different title. Okay. So, and that's why the new book, at least in England, is called The Death Watcher, because they did a study, and they figured that the books that did best was all The Crucifix Killer, The Executioner, The Night Stalker, you know, all of those. So obviously with so they wanted to get back to the something, so they suggested the Death Watcher. I don't remember what my title was, but yeah.
Are there also fragments of your personality in Carlos Garcia?
Oh yeah, well, the long hair, the Brazilian, the jokes. So Hunter is the serious side, and Carlos is like the funnier side. I am very sarcastic, so I put that on Garcia a lot.
Okay. You have mentioned your latest book, so The Death Watcher. There's also a medical examiner, Dr. Ho, and plays an important part in the investigation. And what I especially like is that you also made room for a young aspiring student of pathology, K63. How important for building a plot are these, let's say, side characters?
You know, that's a funny thing that I realized while writing. So every book that I write, there's always some secondary character that I just create because it's like, I need a character here. But I always get loads of comments. So in book 2, there's a girl called Molly, I think, and she's a sort of half medium, and the amount of messages I got about her, like on the first book, there is a guy called D. King who is a pimp, and so every time I create a different character, I get some messages about it. So when I created Kay for this story, I just created her out of the blue again. It's just like, I'm gonna create a character. But the amount of comments I got her, the first comment from my editor in England when she read the book was like, Kay has to come back. That was it. It wasn't like, I like your story.
Yeah,
or like,
we see her.
It was the first thing she said was like, Kay has to come back. I was like, okay. And then my editor in Germany, it was the same thing. She walked in, she goes, I love your book. Kay has to come back. I was like, okay, fair enough. So I love it, the way that the readers like not only Hunter, but they like the secondary characters. But then there are other things as well. So obviously 13 books. I killed a lot of people in my books, as you guys know. But goddamn, I killed one cat in one of the books. And the amount of messages I got about killing a cat. Just like, you can kill people, but do not touch animals. Like, absolutely not. And I also...
So it was a one-time mistake.
I don't remember what the book is, but the killer puts the cat in the freezer and leaves the cat there. So he freezes the cat to death. I don't remember which book that is, but the amount of messages I got about that, it was untrue. And so Garcia is married in the books. He's got a wife called Anna. And I think in 13 books, she appears in a maximum of 6 chapters in 13 books. And I got so many messages of people going, if you ever kill Anna, I'm gonna come for you. It's like, so people just love the secondary characters so much, which to me is incredible. So yes, no, Kay is coming back, trust me.
So, okay, the 14th book with K63, okay.
No, the 14th book, which is the one I'm writing now, hopefully is gonna come out next year, let's see, is the love story. Is the dream, finally after 17 years.
Okay.
But the reason is,
So you're taking a break.
Yeah, no, because this is what happens, right? I do a lot of these stories, and because my life has been very sort of colorful, let's put it this way. I went from criminal psychology to music to exotic dancing. There's always a question, how did you go from criminal psychology to becoming a writer, you know? So the story of the dream comes out in every interview I do. It's just there, right? So then I was traveling in Germany. I was doing the tour in Germany. And we were going from one city to the other, and it was me, the German actor that does the reading, and the person from the publishing house. And they go, Chris, you always tell the story of this dream. Do you remember the dream? I was like, yeah, of course. So they say, what's the story? So I told them the story in the train, and they looked at me and was like, you have to write that story, man. I was like, okay. Then I told my editor in England, and she was like, you have to write that story. So now I'm getting the opinion, not of my girlfriend, but from the people in the business of publishing, right? So I was like, okay, fine, I will finally write this twisted love story from 17 years ago. So the next book is not a hunter book, it's a love story.
We are looking forward to it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, let's keep to Death Watcher for a few more minutes. We know that it was inspired by true events.
Yeah.
So what is the true story behind the book? When did you come across it? How did you deal with it? Can you tell us a bit more about it? About the background?
Yeah, so after I finished Genesis, which was by far my darkest book, that was a very hard book for me to write because it has a lot of my own darkness and my own pain in the book. I had just lost my partner, the lockdown had kicked in, it was just a horrible part of time. So I didn't want to do anything so heavy. So I was looking for a story, and then I saw something on the news that reminded me of this case that we worked in, which was a very similar case, that the investigation took forever. And I'm not going to review, because if you haven't read it, but it was something I saw on the news that reminded me of the investigation, and I decided to do, to base the story on the criminal that it took us 5 years to catch him. We did catch him in the end. So the ending of the book is very, very similar to reality, very, very similar to what the real criminal was like. Which is very sad, because when you get to the end, you understand, again, that's one of the things I try to do in my books. I always try to show the why done it, because the who done it, like Agatha Christie, it can be anybody, right? Mm-hmm. It can be the maid, it can be the chauffeur. You don't argue, you don't go, oh, it couldn't be the chauffeur. But the why done it is what's interesting people. Mm-hmm. That's what people watch serial killer films or read books. They want to understand why these people are doing this crazy stuff, right? So this book, The Death Watcher, it was one of the books that I got so many messages of people saying, I really sympathize with the killer at the end. So I understand that what he was doing is wrong, but he is also a victim of what has happened. And it's something unfortunate that happens on the world today. And it happens a lot. I even said that a lot of people don't know this. Oh, you guys live in a great country with very, very little crime. It's like in the First World War. But what happens in the rest of the world is something that is terrifying to a lot of people. So you understand, like, for example, so today we have more slaves in the world today than we did when slavery was legal, right? And over 50% of these slaves are children in sex slavery. It's a horrible reality out there.
Yes.
People don't understand this, but we live in a world that is like, you guys are doing amazing over here. So, yeah, it was based on this. So obviously a few things get changed in the story,
Yeah.
but the ending is very similar to what happened in real life.
Wow, okay. Your novels deal with extremely violent crimes, and of course this raises, as you said, the important questions of why. Why do you think that people like to read this kind of content?
Okay, so here goes.
And this is also a question for you, the audience. To je tudi vprašanje za vas, spoštovano občinstvo, zakaj pravzaprav radi berete knjige Chrisa Carterja?
Okay, so I mean, there are different schools of thoughts in why people read it. There's several different reasons. People read it for whatever reason, but what I have found, so this is my opinion, right? We are inquisitive by nature. Humans, we want to know things that we don't know. We want to understand things we don't understand. That's why the three biggest questions on Earth, and I think it's going to stay the three biggest questions on Earth for a long, long time, they're all wise, or is there. So the three are, is there a God? Is there life after death? And is there life outside this planet? Those are the three biggest questions on Earth. And they will never get answered. Maybe life outside this planet. But we always want to know. The problem is, when you see a real serial killer like Ted Bundy, or, for example, everyone knows who Ted Bundy is, right? You guys know who he is? Do you know why he killed? See, that's the thing. So a lot of people don't really know the reasons behind, because what the police puts out is about 20% true. 80% is bullshit, right? Because we don't have to tell the crowd the real reasons. We don't have to, because it can incite different things, right? The human mind is really weird. You only need a little seed in your mind to start something that can be very bad. Again, I'll give you an example. Have you guys heard of a killer called the BTK killer? Bind, torture, kill. So he was active in the 70s as well. And his story is this. He was a 10-year-old kid, and he was in a barbecue, in a party with his family. And then him and this little 10-year-old girl got into a room, and when you're 10-year-olds, you know, you play with each other, they'll touch, all that kind of thing. The mother of the girl walks into the room, sees this happening, gets angry, and he slaps the girl. Go, what are you doing? Slaps the girl. That slap, the kid, 10 years old, he saw that, and he got more excited than he ever got in his life. Seeing the violence of the mother against the girl got him so excited that he was like, what is this? What is this thing inside me? And that's what grew up to be, right? And that's one of the things that, for example, the internet is a great thing, but you can plant that seed, because if you have an interest in anything or curiosity in anything, it doesn't matter what it is, pedophilia, bestiality, whatever it is, you can find that on the internet, right? And you can watch it, see a picture, and then ting, a little thing starts in your head, and you can grow up to be. So that's what I'm saying. So serial killers, you only need a little seed in your head to become. So we were talking about not giving the information out, right?
We were talking about what in your opinion, is
the
X
so
factor
people want to know the reasons behind, but you don't get those reasons in real life. But when you read a book, right? If I write a killer, that, let's say the killer kills the victim, but leaves a little paper butterfly on top of the victim in the crime scene, right? You want to know what is the significance of that butterfly, right? You want to know why the killer is doing this. In a fiction book, you have to explain. And that's the main difference that I found in between real life and fiction. Fiction has to make sense. Real life doesn't. In a fiction book, you have to explain everything and make it plausible. Make it people go, oh, okay, I understand why this person is doing this crazy thing, what happened in his life. But real life is not like that. I always tell, there's a story I tell, I interviewed this killer, and he was a mass murderer. So he killed 5 people in one night. And what happened, he was in a bar in America, and he had altercation with a person, got into a fight, and he decided, I'm going to kill this person, right? As you do in America. But instead of like waiting for him outside the bar, no, he followed this guy home, right? When the guy got home, he was closed the door, he put his foot on the door, stopped the door, kicked into the house, got into the house, killed the guy, his wife, 2 daughters, a son, and the dog. He killed everybody in the house, right? And I asked him, I was like, okay, I understand that you had a fight with the guy in the bar, but why did you kill the whole family? And he shrugged and he said, they was home. So he killed everybody simply because they were home. I was like, it was their house. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. What did you want them to be? But that's, if I write a story and I give that as a reason at the end of the book, you're never going to buy a book from me again, right? You're going to go, what the hell? So people read crime stories because they get the false idea that they understand. It's the false sense of knowledge. I now know why this killer did it. And it's satisfying to the human mind to think that I understand, to think that I know. So one of the reasons a lot of people read it is because they get the false sense of the pleasure at the end of the book going, I understand why this guy did this, right? So that is one of the reasons I think, obviously, you guys can read it for everything, but the pleasure of understanding the crazy mind of whatever serial killer I create or any author creates it is very satisfying to the human brain.
I totally agree. This was a great explanation. Do you agree?
Thank you.
Se strinjate?
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
So you're not only just a dancer.
The city in which everything is happening is LA, and in chapter number 39, I'm talking about the Death Watcher, of course, you write, and I really like this part, that for the majority of people who come to LA in search of a better life, the city actually becomes a place of shattered dreams and lost souls. A place where innocence came to die and demons were born.
Have you ever been to LA?
Well, no. But I presume LA is full of stories worth writing about.
Well, LA, one of the reasons I chose LA, well, one, I live there, but LA, you have the super rich, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, Malibu and all the hills, you know. And you go 3 miles down from Malibu or Santa Monica or Beverly Hills, right? Actually, 2.5 miles from Beverly Hills, you're in Compton. And Compton is pretty much, not even the police goes in Compton. It's like, it's just gangland. So it's a city that you can go from having the super rich to the super poor in 20 minutes in a car, right? Plus you also have the stars and you have the music stars and everything. So it's a city that gives you everything. Like every kind of story, even the funny one. So I'm gonna give you another funny one. So when I was in LA as well, in between doing my dancing routines, I worked in a restaurant. I think everybody when you're in a university as well, you work either in a bar or as a waiter in a restaurant or waitress, right? So I was a waiter in a restaurant in LA. And this is a thing that happens, I don't know if it happens here, but it happens in America. So when you order a pizza in America, right? Before the waiter takes the pizza from the kitchen to the client, we eat one of the toppings. It's a thing, right? So if you order pizza, mushroom pizza, right? You go pick up the pizza in the kitchen, you get a little mushroom.
Do you think
and then
they do
take
that
the
in
pizza to
Slovenia
the guy,
as well,
right? This is what we did. So I was taking the pizza out, and it was a pepperoni pizza, so the little salami things. So I grab one, obviously, as well as you grab a pepperoni, put it, and I take the pizza to the girl, to the lady at the table. So I put the pizza down, and the lady looks at the pizza, and she looks at me, and she looks at the pizza again, and then she looks at me, and that's when I realized that there was a string of mozzarella going from my mouth all the way down to her pizza, right? Seriously. I lost my job, by the way. But no, so LA has all of that. So it was mainly, well, when I started the books, we didn't really have Google Earth. So I needed to do a city that I understood a little bit about the city. So that's why on the first book, everything pretty much happens around North Hollywood. That's where I used to live. So it's because I knew the area. Nowadays, I can write a book about, Ljubljana and know exactly where, because you can look on Google Maps and go, this is how you do to get here and there. But back then, it wasn't. But it's a city. Plus, as well, I worked with the police in America, so I knew how the American police works, which is very, very different than the police in the UK, where I live. So I couldn't write a book based in the UK because I didn't know the procedures of the police, but I knew the procedures of police in America. So that's why I used LA. But it is, like I said in the book, a lot of people go to LA to try stardom, either in the music industry or in the film industry, right? But the competition is enormous. It's like most people, they do 6 to 7 auditions a day, every single day. And they don't get a job for years, right? So the competition is, after that, that's when they become the broken dreams, right? You need to live. You need to have money for food. You have to pay rent and all that. LA is a quite expensive city. Then you start doing all the different odd jobs. A lot of actresses become porn actresses, or start working as dancers like I did, or pole dancers or something. So then your dreams of becoming a star, it starts to blur. And you know that after a certain age, you're done in that industry. So there are a lot of times that a lot of people come to Los Angeles with a lot of dreams and hoping for the best, but the reality is very different.
Would you maybe like some water?
Yeah, I will get them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Slovenian publisher Učilam has a brand new product, and they have given out your books in a special gift box. I don't know if you have had a chance to see this gift box, but what do you think of this gesture?
Ah, amazing. I got one. So apparently there's only 300 of these. Yeah. So get them, because maybe in a few years they're going to be worth a lot of money. I'm not sure. But there's only 300. And I have number one. I got to the hotel yesterday. I arrived yesterday. I got to the hotel and there was a box of this right there. So I was like, oh. So for me, it's my first ever box set. And this, the blood splatter with the letters, absolutely amazing. So I took a picture straight away, I made a video, and I put it on my Instagram. And the amount of people in the UK going, we need to get this in the UK. We need to get the publishing house in the UK to do it. And say, I'll definitely buy one.
Wonderful idea.
But it's amazing. But there are only 300 of these boxes out. So, yep.
Be quick.
Be quick.
So we have established that the 14th book is a love story. Are you maybe conducting a research for the 15th?
Oh, it's already done.
Okay. Oh,
it's like when I'm writing, I get ideas for the next book already. So I knew that I would do a Hunter. I wanted to take a break and do this book. Just, I don't know. After 17 years and everybody's saying you have to write it. But I knew that I would do another Hunter. So I had like 3 different ideas, and I sat with my editor in the UK and I said, look, I have 3 ideas for the new Hunter. Which one do you want me to use? And she was like, all 3. I said, just pick which one you want to do next. So the next one, to compensate from the Death Watcher, is going to be extremely violent. So be aware. But yeah, so the next Hunter book is going to be released in 2026. So my deadline is December 2021 to finish it. But it's coming. It's coming. And yeah, Hunter's getting married as well. No, I'm joking. I get this question so much. It's like, when is Hunter going to have a love life? No, I'm just joking. He's getting a new car, though, because his car has been it's been the same car for 16 years, people. It needs a new car.
So, okay, you get new ideas, but how do you conduct your research when starting on a new story? What's the process?
Okay, so every author has his own, you will find a way that you feel comfortable with in your work. With me, it's a really silly process. I don't really think very much about the story. I just need a little tiny idea, like the seed.
Yeah, okay.
And then I go on it. Example, on the second book, all I had in my head is like, I wanted to do a killer who kills his victims by using their fear. So he finds out if you're scared of spiders, he kills you with the spiders. If you're scared of being buried alive, he buries you alive. So he finds out what scares you the most, and that's all I had, nothing else. So I just start writing. It's like I sit down. It's like a snowball. You start a little bit. The third book, I didn't even have a story or a reason. I just had a very strange way of killing somebody, right? And again, the same girlfriend. I was at the beach with her. I think we were in Ibiza. I don't remember, but I just there, and I was thinking, and I came up with this idea. And the third book, the way the killer kills the women, he inserts something inside the woman, and he sews it shut, right? And then that kills them later. It's a time-delayed thing. And I came up with that idea, and I was at the beach, and I turned to my girlfriend and said, I just had an idea for a book. And she was like, okay. So I told her the idea, and she was like, really? Right here. What gave you the idea? Is it the sun, the beach, or me? Because I was like, I just had the idea. So that's all I had for book 3. I didn't have the killer. I just had, that would be a very different way of killing someone. And then I start writing. So to me, I just need something that makes my mind go, okay, I could use this. And then I start. I have no notes, nothing. I know authors that their notes are longer than the book. Like they have 500 pages of notes on the book, and they need to know the whole story from the beginning to the end before. I don't. I start writing, and then I change things in the middle. I was like, oh, I can do this. And then I change. Like book 2, I was finishing a chapter, and I was like, I need a cliffhanger here. I don't know what. And then this is book 2, so right at the beginning, they still had answering machines. You guys remember answering machines? The young ones don't even know what that is. And then I just decided to do this thing that Hunter was in the house of the victim, and he finds that there were 50 messages on the answering machine. And all 50 messages were blank. There was not a sound. And all 50 messages were exactly 12 seconds long. And I just created that at the end. But then at the end of the book, like I said, fiction has to make sense. I had to explain why 12 seconds, why blank. And it took me 4 days to come up with an idea. So I do stuff like this. I throw something in the book and then I just fix it later. But that's how I do it. I just need a little thing to get my mind going, and I work. That's why I have so many ideas, because I don't really need a lot of preparation, not notes. I just go up to my editor and say, look, I had this idea to do this, but I think because the series has done so well, they don't even care. They just go, yeah, whatever you want to do. Right. But yeah, I had 3 ideas, and that was it. My pitch is a line long. I don't even tell the story. I say, look, there's going to be a new killer that does this. And then they go, that sounds good, and then that's it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
How long does it usually take for you to
I am very lazy. So I take as long as I get given. Let me explain. So if my publishing house says your deadline is 31st of December, right? And I decide to start the book on the 2nd of February, I calculate how many days are in between the 2nd of February, 31st of December, no weekends, because I don't like to work weekends, 5 days a week. How many words do I have to do every day to get to around 100,000, because my books are usually 100,000, right? And that's what I do. I do it. So if it's like 400 words a day, I do 400 words a day for a year. So if they give me a year, I take a year. If they give me a year and a half, I take a year and a half.
Okay.
And you know, the reason for that is because my first 4 books, I finished 3 months before my deadline. Nothing happens. Nothing. Your book is scheduled to be released in July, right? Deadline is in December. If you hand in the book in June, it's still going to get released in July. They don't change the date. So the release date doesn't change. I don't get a bonus. I don't get more money. Nothing happens. So I was like, why am I going to work more if nothing's going to happen? So I am very lazy. I was like, okay, I have a year. I'll work a year. So,
pragmatic.
Yeah.
Who do you look up to? Do you have a favorite writer? Is there anybody who influences your style of writing?
That's the thing. I never read very much. So the idea of you guys are going to probably boo me now because you're all readers, I know this. Last year I read 1 book, one. This year I read 2. I'm doing better. But I'm not a reader. I was never a reader. When I started writing again, I said it was from a dream. It wasn't because I read loads of books and I wanted to be a writer. Okay. So I have no one that the books I've read in the past year were amazing. One is by a guy called Mike Craven, and it's a new book called The Mercy Chair, and it's an incredible story. The other one is one called Blood Like Mine. Blood Like Mine. By a guy called Stuart Neville, a fantastic story as well. So, but I don't read very much, so there's no one that I really look up to or an author. I respect all the authors because I know how difficult it is for you to finish a book and get a book published. So I respect every author because it's a tough job, seriously.
So okay, you said I had a dream. So the dream is here. You are a full-time writer. Did you ever think, when starting out, you would gain such recognition, such success?
I don't think anybody does. When you start out, especially me coming from a music background, I used to be a musician, and I think if anybody here has ever been an artist, we all get into art because we love art. It doesn't matter if it's painting, acting, music. We don't expect I'm going to become a guitarist because I'm going to become a millionaire. If you do, then you're crazy because we get into art because we love doing art, right? I got into writing because I had this idea and then I started writing. And again, the book got changed so many times. So when the book got released, and now I do this, so they decided to release my book in England, which was the first place it got released, in hardcover, right? So it's more expensive. And I was like, nobody's gonna buy my book. I was like, nobody knows who I am, right? It's getting released in hardcover, so it cost £13, right? Then. Okay. And I was like, who is going to buy my book when they can buy a Stephen King book or something? So on the first day the book got released, I went to the shop and I bought one book and I said, I'm sincerely gonna sell one book because now I do that every year. Every time a book gets released, I go to the shop and I buy one book on the first day. It's my good luck. You buy your own book. It's my good luck charm. I go to the shop and I buy one book on the first day of release. That's for good luck. That's what I do. But I never expected even, like I said, so most people don't know this. So when I wrote The Crucifix Killer, at the end, Hunter dies. The original manuscript, he dies. It wasn't supposed to be a series. It was just a book. I didn't know what I was doing, so I wrote the story, and I kill Hunter in the end. And my agent was one who said, I think you should change the ending. So then, yeah. So I never expected to go more than one book. Imagine 13 books and 16 years later, right? Wow. So I am very lucky, and that's what I said. And it's all thanks to you guys, so thank you so much, because if it weren't for you support, I wouldn't be here. It's like, so thank you so much for helping me and, keeping me alive.
Are you still surprised that you get such an audience?
I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised that people, because I didn't know that people like books this much. I knew music, but until Instagram appeared, I didn't know that there were people that read so vigorously. Like on Instagram, you get people going, "Oh, this is my roundup for August." And it's like 23 books. It's like you read 23 books in 30 days, and people go, "Yeah." It's like if it's a normal thing. It's like, I read one book a year. It's like, oh my God, I didn't know that. So there's the fan base for readers is enormous, and I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. And before I got my deal as well, it was 2008. So this is how lucky I am with things. All of my friends were making money on the stock market. So I decided for the first time in my life to invest. 2008. You know what happened, right?
How did that end?
You know what happened, right? I lost everything. I lost everything I had. I was actually sleeping in the park. I lost my house. I was sleeping in the park. And I remember sitting there thinking, well done, Chris. I was like, you studied university, you did all this, and here you are, sleeping in the park in England. So I was in a very, very, very bad situation. Like, thinking about ending everything. It was a horrible thing when I got my book deal. And so you guys, you saved me. You really saved my life. Like I was about to end everything. And it was because the book did well that I am still here. So sorry about that.
Wow, this is crazy. I didn't know this.
So
part
thank you so
about
much.
You,
Yeah.
about sleeping in the car.
Again, it's my luck, right? Everybody was making so much money, and then they were telling me since 2006, you have to invest. You have to invest. It's like no, and then I finally go, okay.
And it crashes.
And it crashes. As soon as I invested, the market crashed. So it's like, okay, never again.
Okay, Chris, to aspiring crime writers, I'm sure that maybe some of them are here with us today.
Okay.
Do you have some tips how to start?
Yeah, don't do it. Go home. Seriously. Give up. Look, the only tip I can give, obviously you're only good as advice as your experience. My experience is very little because all I did is I wrote one book and I got lucky. So all I can say is like trust your gut. It's your story, not your agent's story, not your teacher's story, not your mother's story, not your editor's story. It's your story. So tell your story the way that you want to tell your story, not the way that other people want to tell it. And that's it. Create your characters the way that you think your characters should act. And believe in the story in your head. If you think your story is good, go for it. Forget about everything. Forget about rules. That's the other thing. A lot of people study creative writing. I didn't do anything of that. Because once you get rules, you get in a box. It's like, I can't do this because it goes outside the rule. Forget about that. Just write your story the way that you think your story should be told. And that's it. Trust your gut. That's all I can say. That's what I did.
Before we give the word to the audience, what's next for Hunter? So we know he's not getting married.
No.
Okay.
What's next?
Yeah. What's next?
A new car. It's gonna. I mean, the next story, like I said, is gonna be very violent, but it's talking about a theme that it happens a lot nowadays. The world is so crazy that it gives us writers, especially crime writers, a lot of ideas of things to do. So this is something that you see. I can't really reveal much because I don't have a lot of the idea. Like I said, I only have this one little thing, which is gonna carry, the seed. And if I tell you, then you know what the ending is gonna be. So all I can say is that it's gonna be a lot more violent than the last one.
Are we satisfied with that? Yeah, we have to be.
There's nothing else.
Spoštovano občinstvo, še enkrat srčna hvala, da ste se zbrali v zares takem številu in vse pohvale založbi Učila, da je organizirala tako izjemen dogodek. Prav lepo je, ker ste res z energijo tukaj zelo prisotni. Krasno je, ko se tako odzivate. Zdaj pa res, da nam ne bo zmanjkalo časa. Besedo damo še vam. Chris Carter bo odgovoril na vaše vprašanja. Mikrofon zagotovo potuje nekje okrog, pa morda, če bi se kdo oglasil, nekaj tisti najbolj pogumni, no, ker nekdo mora vedno začeti dvigne roko, mu bomo dali mikrofon, da lahko postavi vprašanje. Lahko tudi v slovenskem jeziku, če ima kdo težave, pa bomo prevedli. 3 roke so že v zraku, tako da dajmo malo pohiteti. Bomo prišli z mikrofonom okrog? Bomo. Okay.
Poor guy, he's never gonna get
Pa morda
there.
zadaj začnemo, pa si ga potem kar počasi podamo naprej. Yeah, we have questions. Pa če lahko samo ostanete, tako da se vas vidi.
Shoot, hi.
Mene zanima, glede na to, da je Hunter poznal vse mimike obraza, telesno govorico, ko razkrije zadeve. Me zanima, če tudi on v privatnem življenju, ki očitno pozna vse te zadeve, tudi ko se pogovarja z ljudmi, pač opazuje te znake in razume še te nebesedne zadeve.
How good are you in discovering? Okay, no, I will ask differently. Do you have the knowledge of body language? Do you, when you talk to people as Hunter does, do you pay attention to it?
Yeah.
To the hidden gestures?
Well, I used to do
A
it
sem nekako
more.
prav povzela. Tako nekako.
I used to do it more before. Now, not so much. But the thing about body language, it does give you a lot away about a lot of things. It's not really like you see in films, but you can learn a lot about a person from body language. This is the psychology of everything. It's like the questions you get on the internet about if you were a perfume, which perfume would you be? That's all the psychology, getting ideas from your personality to get points. So I used to do it a lot. I think it's that thing that when you graduate from psychology, you analyze all your friends, you know what I mean? Now it's been too many years, I don't do it unless I am looking for something. It's like if I'm looking for specific things, then I start looking more. But yeah, I don't do it as much, but I used to.
Okay. Gremo naprej.
I'm guessing that you have a very vivid imagination as a writer. So when you write about these gruesome crimes, which are really disgusting and like twisting your stomach, do you ever dream about these things, your writings, or maybe?
Oh, I don't need those. So unfortunately, because like I said, when I was a criminal psychologist, I was very young and I was taken to all these crazy crime scenes and I've seen everything possible, right? You pay the price, or I pay the price. So now, for example, my insomnia is so bad on the past 5 years. If I go to bed at a normal time, I never, ever, ever wake up past 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm always up by 3 o'clock in the morning. So my insomnia is stupid. This morning, I went to bed yesterday at midnight. I was up this morning by 4:20. That's because I don't sleep consecutive. It's always broken. I sleep like 40 minutes, wake up, 40 minutes, wake up, 40 minutes, wake up. This is every single night. Every time I fall asleep, I have a dream, right? So I have 4, 5, 6 dreams a night. At least 2 of those are nightmares. Every night. This is my life. At least 2 of those are nightmares. And twice a week, I have what's called night terror. That's when you wake up like in a film, like, and you're sweating, you're shivering, you're crying, you don't even know where you are. This is all because of what happened all those years ago. So I don't need those dreams. But when people ask me, does that scare me, the things I create? It doesn't. Simply because exactly that. Because I work with the reality. I know that whatever I create, it doesn't matter how crazy it is, it's fiction. So I know that it doesn't exist. So when I stop working for the day, I can have created the craziest serial killer ever. I know that he is not real. I know that that's just fantasy. So I can close the door of my office and I'm done. When you're working with it, you go to bed at night and you can't sleep because you know that there is a person out there killing people in this very crazy way. So you're always worried because you're trying to stop him, right? So that time was horrible. So now I don't dream about my books, I dream about real life, which is even worse.
This was a great question, but I have to ask you this. How challenging is it to live with insomnia?
It's horrible. It's terrible. It's like, seriously. Most mornings you wake up and you just want to cry because you know you're already so tired. I mean, you begin your day as tired as you can be. It's like you wake up and you go, and you wake up because you know you can't do it anymore. It's like the nightmares are so, in my nightmares, in my case. 2 weeks ago I got a cold. And the reason why I got a cold, it's not because I was out in a club, it's because for 2 nights in a row I had such a horrible nightmare that I woke up and my clothes was completely wet from sweat. And I don't know how long I slept with the wet shirt. So I had to get up, change my whole clothes, sometimes change the bed because the bed is so wet because I sweat so much, because I'm so scared. And because I had the cold clothes on my body, I got a cold. So that's how bad it is. It's not a nice thing. It's like, so you pay the price, you know, for the job I did. It's like, you can't see what I saw or live that life for 7 years and not expect something to go unringed in your head. So at least it's nightmares what I have. I didn't decide to go out there and do it myself.
Okay, let's move on.
In Dead Watcher, there is very little of the private story from Hunter and Garcia. Is there a reason?
Very little of the private story.
Yeah, in the background.
I think it's because the story was getting long. There was so much that I wanted to do because I worked in a case very similar. So when I was writing it, there was all these things that I wanted to put in the story because it was like, this has happened and this has happened. I wanted to put, and there wasn't much. There was a little bit, but I cut at the end. So a lot of people complain about that. They like to know a little bit more about the Hunter story, but yeah, I'll bring it back on the next one.
Okay, kje imamo Aha, prva vrsta.
Yeah.
You are a famous writer, but do you still have time to play a guitar to do music?
Do you still have time to play the guitar?
Oh no! Okay, so I have the guitars at home, but I don't play it anymore. I mean, I don't play with a band anymore. I play it at home, you know, because if you play with a band, then the band you need to rehearse. The band wants to do shows, and it takes time. And all my time now goes either for trying not to be so tired and to write books. But I still got guitars at home. I just play it at home. I don't play with a band.
Who's your favorite musician?
That's complicated. It depends on the time. So at the moment,
right now, yeah.
Okay, so at the moment, there's one band that I respect a lot. It's called Sleep Token. They're from England. They're from London. I actually saw their first ever gig. But to me, the incredible thing about them is that they all wear masks, right? So they look like they're going to be the biggest black metal kind of music you ever. And when you listen to them, they're all piano and like amazing vocals and harmonies and everything. And they are becoming pretty much the biggest band on the planet at the moment. Seriously, give them another 2 years or 3 years and you'll see. So to me, Sleep Token is one of the best bands out there at the moment.
So watch out for Sleep Token.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
I am
Oh, this is coming from a phone. Here we go.
pleased to finally meet you. I don't have a question for you, but I want to say something.
Okay.
When you think you've already read the best crime novel of all time, you prove us wrong, all over again with every new novel. Your cunning mind and experience in the field of criminal psychology. Thank you for all the novels and the chance to escape into a different world, even if only for a short while.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Oh my God, read the best crime novel. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. God damn.
Hi. What do you think makes a great story?
What was that, sorry?
What makes a great story?
I have no idea. Look, there is no secret. If there was a secret, right?
But you have to have a great character, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there was a secret, then every author would become a bestseller. Like, there are so many books that a publishing house thought you'd become a big sensation, and it didn't do well. And so many books that people didn't think would do anywhere, and they exploded. 50 Shades of Grey? Are you kidding me? It couldn't get a deal for The Life of Christ, right? 75 million copies sold worldwide, right? So there is no trick. Nobody knows what. Well, nowadays, right? Apparently, sports porn is supposed to be a big thing. It's like, it's sports love stories or something like that. And people told me it's pure porn. It's like, it's porn stories. And it's doing so well. Romanticy. When I started writing, right, there were certain niches. If you wrote erotica, which is 50 Shades of Grey, you couldn't get a deal because it was a small market, right? It doesn't make money. If you're a poet, you're dead. Nobody's gonna sign you because poets don't sell books, right? It's a business, right? The publishing industry is a business. It's there to make money. So nobody knows. There is no secret. Every once in a while, somebody's gonna write something that is just gonna explode, right? Now I think romanticy is something that became absolutely enormous. A few years ago, you write stories about dragons, nobody even cared about it. So I don't know what makes a good story. It's just the reader makes it a good story.
Wow. So no secret ingredient,
Yeah.
just the reader. Yeah. Okay.
question links to the movies. So when we are going to see movies based on your novels?
I wish. Okay, so this is a thing that a lot of people ask. So during the lockdown, during the
Epidemic.
strike that they had in Hollywood of the artists, I got a call from a guy called Kevin Williamson. He is a scriptwriter, very, very famous in Hollywood, and he wrote Scream, Dawson's Creek, The Vampire Diaries. He's the guy who created all that, right? So he's huge. And he really liked the second book, The Executioner. So we had a meeting, him, me, and the whole team, and he wanted to make a movie, not a series, a movie. And then he took it to Hollywood. We discussed it, and then he took the pitch to Hollywood, and then Hollywood said, it's too violent. So I didn't get it, almost got it, didn't get it, but I always say this as well, and this is not a joke, I did get a call from Bollywood. I'm not kidding, I'm serious. I got a call from Bollywood. They called me, and then they called my agent, and my agent said, no. So can you imagine Hunter Garcia running after the serial killer, and then they stop and go, because that's what they do. That's what they do in every Bollywood film, right? So my agent said we're not doing Bollywood. And I was like, okay, good. So, not yet, but I live in hope.
Okay, so we wait for Hollywood.
Yeah.
Okay. Naprej, aha.
Another question. How far from reality are actually your books?
My books. Reality is weirder than fiction. A lot, like I said, because in fiction things have to make sense and reality doesn't. So a lot of the things, everything I do is sort of based on something I've seen that I want to talk about. So I talk about sometimes being bullied in school and things that happened to you when you were a kid, how you got broken from that. So it's not far at all. I would say reality is even more or crazier than my books are. I don't think unless you're writing about dragons and vampires and something like that, I think any crime book that you get, any author, right, it's close to reality because crimes can happen, and the weirdest crimes happen on this planet. Maybe you guys don't know it because obviously, like I say, you guys live in a very safe country that you don't get this. But on the third world, right, people will kill you for one cigarette. They will kill you for a bottle of Budweiser. They don't care. It's like life in certain countries is not worth anything. Like they will kill you for nothing. So you guys, every crime book, I would say, is very close to reality. It doesn't matter how crazy you might think it sounds, it's close to reality.
Closer than we think, yeah. Nekdo maha tamle zadaj, pa ne vem, če je mikrofon že pripotoval do tja. Aha, gre. Okay. Izvolite.
So I'm also very pleased to meet you for the first time in life. But maybe I'll give you the answer to why I read your books.
Okay.
So in our schools, we need to read Dostoevsky. So, very complicated books. So your book, the first book I read was The Night Stalker. So your book really changed my view of how the writing styles do not need to be complicated to understand it. So my reason why I read your books is definitely because of the easy style, and I can understand it really, really well. It's not complicated to read. It's not complicated to understand what's happening in the story, and I really like it. So my question to you is, I don't know if anybody noticed this, but every book that you have written it has different energy. Like some books are very happy, even though it's
Dark.
And some books are very dark. Is it connected to your real life somehow? Because, for example, in the last book, it's really, the energy is really heavy, and I did struggle to read through it.
On
Some books in one day.
in the Death Watcher or Genesis?
The both. For me, both.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Genesis is definitely dark because, like I said, okay, so I think the reason it gets into your story. Yes, of course, your mood, like in anything, it's like most musicians make their best music when they are broken, you know. It's the same thing. You can't do any kind of art job that your mood doesn't reflect on your work. So Genesis was very dark because, like I said, I lost my partner in 2019, and then the lockdown kicked in 6 months later. That's when I started writing Genesis. So I was in a horrible, horrible mental state then. I was grieving, I was very sad. My depression had hit even harder. So all of that came into the book, all my sadness, all my darkness. The latest one, maybe I knew that the Genesis was the mood. This one I didn't notice, but maybe because, again, it's based on a real investigation that I took place. I participated in. So I think that when I was writing, I kept on remember how hard that investigation was. So I didn't notice that the darkness was coming to the book, because I didn't think this book was that dark. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's because I kept on remembering the real facts on the story. And that was such an incredible, hard investigation for us to finish. It took us 5 years to get the guy. So yeah, the mood, I think, of any artist, of any kind of art you do, reflects on your work. That's for sure.
And I think it's not only the writer's mood, but also the reader's mood.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's like, if you listen to music and you're sad, right, and you listen to sadder music, you're gonna cry, right? It's just the way it is. Like, you guys know the blotch test that they do in psychology, which is the cover in the British book. They get 2 inks and they do this and they open and they showed you. It's called the Ruster test, I think. And that test is supposed to read the person's mind, right? So you can see something beautiful or you can see something really dark. And I always argue that with my professor, saying that just reads the mood of the person on the day, right? If you had a bad day on that day, you had an argument with your wife or something, and you see an image, you're gonna see something dark. So yes, the mood of the reader, I think, also affects, especially because the mood of the writer has to be the same mood for a year, because it takes me a year to write a book, but the reader can do it in a day, right? So if you're reading that book on a day that your mood is very dark, you might think that the book is too dark. So the mood of the reader affects the way you read it a lot as well.
Okay. Še na tisti strani, a ne, potem se pa še enkrat vrnemo na to stran. Ja, saj toliko časa bomo še imeli. Kar izvolite.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Do you have a favorite one out of the series? I don't know. Which one is your favorite?
Okay, so I get asked that a lot as well. I worked very hard on all of them, so all of them to me are, I don't have a favorite, but there are 2 books that have a different meaning to me. Obviously, the first one, because it started everything. And he, like I said, it got me out from living on the streets. I was in a bad thing. So he saved my life. The Crucifix Killer saved my life. So that book means a lot to me. And Genesis, because, again, because of my mood, I had just lost, the person I love the most, and the lockdown. So there's a lot of my own pain and darkness in that book. So those books, they mean something different. I wouldn't say they're my favorite, but they just mean something different.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wonder, do you ever think about your books planting a seed in someone's mind, as we discussed earlier?
A lot of people ask me that as well. And I'll tell you this, right? That only happens in films. Like serial killers, especially if we're talking about serial killers, they don't need a book to make them decide. They might, if they wanted to try to copy something, but they don't do that, because serial killers, right? They kill because they have an urge, and all of them will have a signature. They do it in a certain way because that certain way means something to them, right? They don't need to copy anybody else. They will kill somebody, because they want to get a gratification from it, or because they want to make the world a better place, like I said, or just because they want to thrive on the God power, right? So they don't need a book. No book has ever transformed a person into a killer, right? You have that thing inside you, that craziness inside you from a very young age. So I never got scared about that, no.
Še kako vprašanje? Aha, še. Še gospodič, tamle v predzadnji vrsti.
Hello. I was wondering where you got the, let's say, expert opinions on things like computer science and things that are maybe outside of your immediate area of expertise.
The internet. No, I research. If I don't know something, I research a lot. I research documents on the internet, but not like blogs. I go for documents, and I have a few people that I can call. All of them in Los Angeles, funny enough. So I have a contact in the morgue. I have a contact in a DNA laboratory if I need to understand more about DNA. And sometimes I look for specialists. Like if I want to talk about a weapon or something and I can't find enough, or either that or I just don't describe the thing too deeply in the book. But basically research is part of every writing. If you're a writer, you're going to have to research. That's just, it comes with a job. So like I said, I look for a lot of documents, but I have a few people, doctors, 2 police officers, morgue assistants, and all that kind of laboratory people. So, yeah.
Is that the good or the bad part? The research?
Oh, all of it. I mean, to me, I love everything about writing. Like creating the characters, creating the story, the research. You learn, because when you research, right, you research a lot just to write about this much, right? So you learn a lot of stuff. So on book 5, I wanted to find out if there was any kind of insect that can kill a human being, right? If you read book 5, you know that I use one insect. And then I discovered all these things. I didn't use it, but when you're researching, you find all these things. I remember researching about weapons and ammunitions and bullets, and I didn't even know this. So America, of course, has to be America. They have an ice bullet. You guys, you know this? So the bullet's made out of ice. So they shoot you, they kill you, the bullet melts inside you, disappears, there's no trace. They don't even know how this person will die. So you discover, oh yeah, it's a nice bullet. It's like, gets into your body, it gets heated by the 36 degrees in your body, that's it, disappears. So you discover a lot of, so research is actually a great part of writing. I love it.
Okay. Še kakšno vprašanje? Aha. Da koga ne spustimo.
We're all done? Let's go drinking then.
Ne vidim, če kdo še dvigne roko. One more question, Chris, about your life in London now.
Yeah.
What do you do in your free time? Well, are you, I don't know, a fan of a sports club, or we know that music is your second love?
I'm older now, so I don't party, but well, I always loved dancing, so I used to go out clubbing. I used to go out clubbing a lot, like every weekend. And in London, it's crazy. Like if you've ever been to London, it's like there is everything, every kind of music. So, and yes, I like rock music a lot, but when I go dancing, I like techno, drum and bass, psytrance. So that a lot, and I got a few friends that we hang out a lot. Do parties in my house, do like cheese and wine parties, and so, and I love concerts. I do a lot of festivals as well. I like going to festivals. So that's pretty much what I do, and I'm trying to read more as well. So I really am. I'm really making an effort now. Seriously.
Why did you choose London? Why London?
Okay, so that was during my music career. I was playing for an artist that was living in London, and I was living in Los Angeles. So I was flying from Los Angeles to London, not even New York, Los Angeles. So it was a long way, right? And then I just like, you know what, I'm gonna move. So I decided to move. And then ended up staying in London. It was a great place, because once I finished my job with this artist, I got another job with a different artist that lived in the UK. So then I just carry on job after job. By then I was a session musician. So then I ended up living in London because I moved because of my job and then stayed because of music.
Okay.
But America is not what most people see. Right? America is not only the big towns. America is not only LA, New York, Chicago, Boston, Seattle, right? America is enormous and is full of little cities, right? And that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize. Most of America, and I'm talking about 80% of America here, right? They are very racist, very religious, very homophobic. This is most of America. So if you don't live in the big cities, you're gonna struggle with their minds. It's a great country in certain ways, but you've seen it on television. It was great when I lived in America, but I think it has changed a lot. So yeah, I prefer Europe.
Okay. We unfortunately have to finish slowly.
Okay.
I would just like to give you the last chance maybe to say something to our audience.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you everybody so much for being here. It's a Friday, it's not even a Saturday, so obviously some of you guys didn't go to work or something. Thank you so much. This is amazing, like the amount of people here. So I really appreciate it. And once again, if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be doing this. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you as well. Thank you.
I would like to thank you for your kindness, for your sincerity. Spoštovano občinstvo, cenjene bralke in bralci, tudi vam res srčna hvala, da ste tako vsebinsko sodelovali na tem dogodku. Bilo je zares izjemno minilo, kot bi rekel Keks. Vsi ste seveda vabljeni na stojnico založbe Odločil v hali 1. Tam bo Kris podpisoval knjige. Tako da prosim, izkoristite to priložnost, da vam pozneje ne bo žal. In še enkrat hvala, ker ste prišli. Lepo se imejte na knjižnem sejmu in jaz upam, da se spet vidimo prihodnje leto. Nasvidenje, hvala.
Okay.
Ja.